Learning seems simple, yet most people struggle to understand things deeply. Richard Feynman showed why. People often confuse memorizing words with understanding ideas. When you read something many times, the words feel familiar. This familiarity feels safe, but it hides gaps. Real learning requires more than repeating terms. It requires knowing what those terms actually mean. You begin to see the difference when you try to explain an idea in plain language. If you cannot do that, the idea is not yet clear. The Feynman technique exposes this gap. It shows you what you truly know and what you are only remembering by habit. True learning begins when you see the difference between memory and understanding, the Feynman. Technique starts with a simple step. Take the idea you want to learn and explain it in plain words. The mind works better when ideas are simple. Complex language overloads working memory. When something is unclear, your mind has to hold too many pieces at once. This slows learning and weakens understanding. When you restate an idea using simple, everyday words, you force your mind to clean it. You remove terms you do not truly understand. You expose gaps you did not know you had. You shape the idea into a clear form your mind can follow. Simplifying is not about making the idea smaller. It is about removing confusion. Once the idea becomes simple, learning becomes faster. You have a structure you can build on. You learn faster when you can express an idea in simple, direct language. Many people think they understand something because the words feel familiar. Feynman warned that this is one of the biggest traps in learning. When you see or hear the same phrases repeatedly, they begin to feel clear even if you cannot explain them. This fluency illusion makes learning feel comfortable, but the comfort is false. It keeps you from looking deeper. You see the problem when you try to restate the idea. You notice places where you cannot move from one step to the next. These gaps show that the idea is only memorized, not understood. Simple explanation breaks the illusion. It separates understanding from repetition. It forces you to see the idea as it is, not as it feels. Learning improves the moment you stop trusting familiarity as proof of understanding. Learning becomes easier when you break an idea into smaller parts. Feynman often took large ideas and divided them into clear pieces. When an idea is too big, the mind cannot hold it all at once. It feels heavy and vague. Smaller pieces feel manageable. Each piece has its own meaning. When you divide an idea, you see how each part works on its own and how the pieces connect. The mind learns faster when each part has a clear role. Breaking down an idea also shows you where understanding is missing. If one part feels unclear, you know exactly where to focus. This reduces confusion and saves time. You learn faster when each part of the idea makes sense on its own. Simple words reveal the truth of what you know. Complex words can hide confusion. Feynman preferred plain language because it forces the mind to face the idea directly. When you use technical terms, you may skip the real explanation. You rely on the sound of the word instead of the meaning behind it. This creates a false sense of understanding. When you restate the idea in simple words, that false clarity disappears. You must say exactly what the idea means. If you cannot do that, you have found a gap. The gap is not a failure. It is a guide. It shows you where to look next. Simple language also reduces mental load. The mind works smoothly when ideas are clean and direct. When ideas are vague, the mind wastes energy trying to connect unclear pieces. This step is not about being simplistic. It is about being precise. Complexity is only useful when the simple version is already understood. Clear ideas survive simple language. Unclear ones fall apart. When you explain something in simple words, hidden gaps appear. People often believe they understand something until they try to explain it. The moment you try to teach the idea, you see where your knowledge breaks. A missing step. A term you cannot define. A connection that does not feel solid. These gaps become a map for your learning. Instead of studying everything again, you focus only on the unclear parts. This makes learning efficient. The process is direct and targeted. The challenge is not the size of the idea. The challenge is the unclear spots inside it. Once you find them, you know what to fix. This stage of the technique is powerful because it brings your learning under your control. You no longer guess what you do not understand. You can see it clearly. Learning becomes faster when you can see exactly what you do not know. After discovering the gaps, you go back to the source material, but this time you study only the unclear parts. Feynman used this cycle repeatedly. He simplified the idea, found the gaps, returned to the material, and simplified again. Each pass made the idea cleaner. This targeted method saves time because you are not reviewing what you already understand. You give your attention only to the parts that need clarity. As you fix each gap, the idea becomes more stable in your mind. It also becomes easier to express in simple language. When you return to the explanation, the missing pieces no longer block you. Learning is not a single pass. It is a series of corrections that bring the idea into focus. Learning strengthens when you fix only the parts that are unclear. Teaching the idea is the final test of understanding. Feynman believed that if you cannot teach an idea simply, you do not understand it well enough. Teaching forces you to rebuild the idea from memory. It also forces you to move step by step. If any step feels weak, it becomes visible. When you teach the idea in plain words, you check your understanding in the clearest way possible. You rely on the strength of the explanation, not on memorization. If the explanation is smooth and clear, your learning is strong. If it breaks, you repeat the cycle until it holds. Teaching also makes the idea last longer in your mind. It turns understanding into a skill, not just information. You know you have learned something when you can teach it simply and clearly. Simplification makes learning faster because it reduces mental load. The mind works better with clean ideas. Complex explanations create noise. The mind must work harder to hold them, and this slows understanding. Feynman used simplification to remove unnecessary weight. When the idea becomes clear, the mind uses less energy. It learns faster, remembers longer, and connects ideas more easily. Simplified ideas stay in your mind without effort. You do not struggle to recall them. You do not mix them with other ideas. The clarity makes them stable. Simplification is not about making ideas shallow. It is about removing what gets in the way of learning. You learn faster when your mind works with clear, simple ideas instead of complex ones. The Feynman technique becomes powerful when used daily. Feynman did not use it only for difficult ideas. He used it for everything he wanted to understand well. Each time he learned something new, he repeated the cycle. Simplify, find gaps, correct them, and teach the idea. This repetition shapes your style of thinking. You begin to notice confusion more quickly. You stop accepting half-understood ideas. You stay with the idea until it becomes clear. When this becomes a habit, Learning feels lighter. You no longer rely on memorizing everything. You rely on structure and clarity. This habit also improves your attention. Clear ideas hold your focus. Vague ideas lose it. Learning becomes easier when simplification becomes your normal way of thinking. Feynman often said that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Pretending to understand blocks the learning process. It creates a false sense of progress. When you say, "I don't know yet," you open the door to real learning. You give your mind permission to explore, correct, and deepen the idea. This honesty makes the technique stronger. It helps you see gaps without fear. It keeps your explanations clean. It guides your attention to the parts that need clarity. Admitting what you do not know is not a weakness. It is a practical step. It speeds up learning and builds real confidence. Learning moves faster when you stop pretending to know what you do not understand. The Feynman technique ends where it begins, with simplicity. Feynman believed that clear thinking comes from simple expression. When you remove noise, expose gaps, and rebuild ideas in plain words, you reach real understanding. Simplification is not a shortcut. It is a method. It turns learning into a clear process instead of a guess. It makes knowledge stable because it is built from your own reasoning. When you learn this way, ideas connect more easily. New information fits into a structure you understand. Learning becomes steady instead of overwhelming. You learn faster and understand deeper when you simplify every idea you study.